Hi, Tzili, welcome. We are together with Professor Susan Andersen, who is also my neighbor, and she's actually a colleague of Yaakov, my husband, for many years. So Susan, she's in psychology, in the psychology department, but her area, she will tell us, her area, and research, because I hear about it for many years from Yaakov, and it became very relevant. It's actually, if I'm not mistaken, it's three main areas, right? One is, and you'll probably will redefine it. It's how we perceive ourselves according to how our significant other perceive us, right? More or less.
Sort of.
Sort of. You also deal with depression, but I don't know what angle. But you have a third one, which I'm not sure what it is, like transformance.
It's what?
Transformance.
Maybe she will tell us what she's
You
doing.
tell us.
Transformance. I'm not sure. I mean, yeah, I'm not sure what that is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is one area, and then I will go and take your journey into other venues.
Directions.
Like just you don't know Tzili, but she went to Afghanistan, and she came back with really some insight. Anyway, Susan, can you tell us exactly what you are doing in your research?
Okay, so I'll give you sort of the broad strokes first of the main line of research. So the easiest way to describe the main line of research is that it is in a way the first experimental demonstration ever of the 100-year-old concept of transference. And so transference is obviously this Freudian idea that has not very often been tested, and it's very difficult to test in principle. And so essentially where this research began that I do is in thinking about the idea that some person who you have known or do know and love, or hate for that matter, who is in your family, or who is was a best friend or a first love, or a sibling, or for that matter a child or whatever, that those humans to whom you are deeply connected, that essentially they're represented in your memory as a bundle of knowledge, and essentially that when you're walking around in your life, that bundle of knowledge about that very significant person can be triggered by some new person that you encounter. So there's kind of, if there's any even hint of similarity of any sort, a laugh, the way they smile, the way they walk, maybe their interests, their values, whatever, if there's any hint of similarity in this new person to what you have stored in memory, what is stored in memory will be activated, and then you'll use it sort of as a lens through which to perceive this new person. Wow. So you end up kind of distorting your interpretation and perception and emotional responses and motivations and all of that to the new person based on what you know about your significant other. And all of this I've been able to show happens essentially without awareness. You're not aware of it while it's going on. And even if I were to tell you about it and try to make you aware of it, because let's say you don't want to engage in that process, that would basically make very little difference. In other words, even if you know that I'm kind of prompting you to have this transference response, and you're now going to try to not have it, that fails.
So basically, when we meet somebody, do we connect on something that we feel that we think it's a mutual basis, or something familiar, or something that we bring with us to this person, or something that we recognize about this person?
I mean, all of that in a sense, but the simplest version of it is that you're connecting, your first connection with someone is often because they remind you, unconsciously perhaps, of someone who you have known and loved, or perhaps known and detested, or whatever. Or maybe you love this person, but you don't feel safe with them, and so then in that case, you might really have a positive response to them, but you're not going to be disclosing at all. You're not going to say what is really truly going on with you, because you're not, you don't trust them, because you don't trust your significant other.
Can we undress somebody with the quality that we recognize? If it's with someone we not really like, can we undress it and put it on somebody else that we find likable in a way that we want him to have, or her to have, this quality?
The other one.
I'm not sure exactly what you're asking, but if you're asking, like, let's say I have a really negative significant other who betrayed me repeatedly or something like that. If you're asking, can I or might I end up searching for the opposite?
No. Like
No.
if still the other one has something that you do like, but you don't like it with the whole other things. And then you just take this and you put it on somebody else that you like, but doesn't have it, or you want to create something familiar. So you create your own creation in order to be with somebody that you think it's the right one.
Complicated.
I mean, in principle, what you're saying, I mean, I'm missing the beginning of it somehow, the preamble to the question, but in principle, that's exactly what is happening all the time, is that you are filling in the blanks about a new person, using what you know about a loved one, okay, or a hated one, but who is really significant. You're filling in the blanks about this new person using your prior knowledge. And for example, I don't know if this is what you were trying to get at, but if I really love someone, okay, and let's say it's your husband, or let's say it's your mother or your sibling or whatever, or your best friend. I mean, you might really love this person, but obviously everyone is flawed. And so there have got to be, tons of things, or lots of things, let's just say, about this person that drive you out of your mind, that just you can't stand. And what you end up doing with those things about a loved one that you dislike are you sort of find a way to transform them into a virtue, or transform them into a pleasant, funny quirk. Okay, so he has this quirky thing that he does all the time. And in other words, I get very practiced at looking at this thing that I can't stand, like he drinks too much, and turning it into, or reminding myself about why I'm staying in the relationship anyway. Okay, so it turns out that that's very important for maintaining long-term relationships, that particular process. But if you're applying it to a brand new person, the fact is it can be quite dangerous, because depending on who the new person is and whether that new person is dangerous, you could end up assuming that these negative qualities that your loved one has are not going to be malignant, or are not going to be dangerous. So, yeah.
Can I extend it a little bit? Is when married couple or just couples tells you you're like your mother. Is it part of this this stew?
It is definitely possible that it's true, yes. And within my framework is also, like, the way that you're saying it, you're like your mother, implies that your husband is saying that to you as if that's just a stable quality that you have. But in all probability, if you're behaving like your mother, you're doing so because he is behaving like your father. In other words, he's
That's
doing
amazing. Your answer
something
is
that is
amazing.
reminding you
Wow.
of your father.
But we
And then-
usually choose
Wow.
something
and
that
you end up enacting momentarily, not permanently, but for the next, 15 minutes or 2 hours or 1 day or whatever, you end up enacting your mother's story because something about what he was just doing triggered that thing, and you end up playing that out. Yeah.
But at the same time, he's playing out his parents.
He might be playing out his parents, or maybe, but he might also just be accidentally doing something that reminds Tzipi of Tzipi's father. And so then Tzipi then might end up adopting, doing the kind of thing that her mom typically did, or whatever, something like that. Yeah.
So if this leads us to, I think, well, I don't know if it's a separate research, that we perceive ourselves according to how our spouse or our significant other perceive us?
That's not exactly it. I mean, first of all, it's the same line of research, and it just builds on this initial basis, because the whole reason that a significant person, a loved one of yours, or a detested person who has had a big impact on you, the whole reason that person is really significant to you is because that person is essentially linked to your understanding of yourself. Okay. And what we've been able to show in this research that I do is that when this significant person is activated from memory and is now going to be playing some role in an interaction, is that you begin to see yourself and experience yourself as you typically do when you're with that significant other, okay? And so it's not necessarily that you're becoming what your significant other wants you to become or believes you are or whatever. That kind of process can happen too, but that's not what I study. What I study is that, you know, essentially there is a version of myself. I mean, Tzipi, we're quite close. And so, for example, there is a version of myself that I often find myself enacting when I'm around you, because, for example, you're very funny and you crack me up. So there is a certain play or something that we do that I really like. And so, for example, that's the kind of thing, you know, so there, if my mental representation of you were somehow triggered, I call it the relational self. So the version of myself that I tend to experience with you is what I'm going to start re-experiencing again. Okay. And we can take that in all kinds of other ways, but like, let's say that you have an ex who you haven't seen for, I don't know, a decade or 2 decades or whatever. Sometimes you could think of that person, or you could literally encounter that person, or somebody could remind you of that person. And then suddenly the version of yourself may be defensive, maybe irritated, maybe competitive, maybe annoyed, maybe hurt because you're betrayed or whatever. That whole thing can suddenly start coming out, even though this person who reminds you of your ex has nothing to do with your ex.
Right.
And so it's sort of like, I don't know if you know that expression, shadow boxing. Shadow boxing is just like you're kind of, you know, in the middle of this, you know, boxing match with somebody who's not there.
Yeah. Oh, I just want to recommend everybody to just look at the first shot of The Raging Bull, the film. It's, you know, it's like a boxing ring. It's Martin Scorsese. Boxing ring, black and white. And Robert De Niro stands on the left side by himself. And for about 2 minutes, which is a lot in film time, he go slow motion, you know, hitting.
Oh, shadow boxing, right.
And it is. And what it is actually, it's he by himself almost fighting his own demons. No?
Yeah.
Everybody should see this. It's just short and the title on it, but it's one of the most, for me, I don't know why I have to think about it. Fighting your own demons. It's amazing. Tell me something. So it's not really similar, but something when you were talking ring for me about the character of battered women.
Yes, absolutely. It's very related. You know, in fact, I used to do research on battered women and things like that, just the general idea of, if you will, mind control or social influence, the way a powerful or manipulative person can essentially control the environment of another person and dominate in those kinds of ways. But you're right in the sense that at the very least, battered women or battered anybody in a relationship will have a whole pattern that they will have played out. For example, you know, if you've already been hit multiple times in your home, then you already know that there are all these things you have to do, that you have to have the dinner on the table at a particular time. I mean, you have to have the phones turned off. You have to make sure that you know, I don't know, television won't come on, or if there's an answering machine in the old days and it's turned down, you know, things like that, because you have learned that there are certain things that set him off. And so you're sort of trying to do everything just so, the meal ready right the moment he walks in and all of these different things. And so all of that goes on like that. And of course you will fail to be perfect, because nobody is perfect. He takes that as an insult, you know, that you don't love him, you don't care. Obviously, you don't care at all, or this would not happen. Of course, she's been caring all day long about this. And but meantime, at some point, he will just start being very intimidating, and she will do what she has learned, which is to cower a little bit, waiting for the next punch or the first punch of the day. And you know, and then that is a cue to him that, see, you don't even trust me. You're really putting your arm up. You don't even, that's another, you know, thing that you don't love me, whatever. Anyway, the point is he beats her up, etc., and storms out. Okay. When he comes home, you know, the next morning or in the middle of the night or whatever, he's crying, you know, I mean, I love you. I've never loved anyone like I love you. I mean, I need you. I mean, without you, I just can't make it. you know, please, I mean, forgive me. It was the alcohol. I had too much to drink before I came home or whatever. And she's thinking, oh, here I have, you know, the husband I've always wanted. You know, this is the man who I think you are deep down is this loving one. And then the whole cycle starts over. You know, and so at the very least, that is a description of what happens with the battered women. But the other thing is that, you know, one element of that is this sort of transference element and the significant other element of the relational self, and also the activated need to do everything you possibly can to placate, you know, to basically prevent yourself from being beaten up. So you'll be very submissive, you'll placate, you'll do everything to keep everything just so. And then the domineering response happens anyway.
Right.
You did a movie.
Yeah, did I send you the link to my film, Chronicle of Love? It's about butter, but it's, because, you know, I did a research, very vast
Yeah,
research.
I mean, we have talked about this, but I don't think I've seen it,
I will
no.
send you the link.
Okay.
But, you know, one thing that I heard there a lot of them say that I feel like the heights of grass.
I feel the size of a little
yeah,
thing of grass. Yes, I feel so small. I feel so insignificant.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Mhm.
So
And helpless. I feel helpless
completely.
because he's a giant compared to
I will
how-
send you the link. But anyway, so I mean, you really are dealing with the depressing subject, because the third one is really depression.
Yeah, well, I don't do very much of that anymore, but I used to do quite a lot of it because this is a long story, but I also am clinically trained. And so I've most of my career had a tiny private practice at the same time as being a researcher and publishing and teaching as a professor, you know. And one of the things that this is just a tangent in a sense, but it was an inspiration to me, or a provocation to me, that I had a client who was, you know, severely depressed. Okay. And one of the things that she said was, and she just said it in a very blasé kind of way. She said, it's just that I can't envision any future I could bear living in. You know, I can't imagine any future I could ever have that I could stand. So one of the things that first of all, I was so stunned that I was kind of speechless, but also I just remember thinking that is not at all the way depression researchers are talking about depression, because here is this woman who is treating the future as if it has already occurred, as if she is certain of what the future will contain. And she knows it's going to be a piece of, you know what, it's just going to be horrifying. It's going to be hideous. And that's the beginning and the end. And nobody was really talking about that issue. And even when some people were talking about it, some people who are depression researchers talked about things like hopelessness. But when they were measuring hopelessness, they weren't measuring it that way. They were measuring it as pessimism, which is just, you sort of think that negative events are likely and positive events are not very likely. That's pessimism. It's not extreme. Okay. But hopelessness, if you were measuring it properly, in my opinion, should be hopelessness. Without hope, zero hope. And so that's a kind of I don't know if this is too in the weeds, but it's a kind of dichotomous issue. It's binary. You're either, you know, you either have a little bit of hope or you've got none. And so I got interested in examining that kind of question and what kinds of sort of thought processes might lead you to become hopeless, and what kinds of thought processes might enable you to keep your head above water and not fall into the severity of hopelessness and so on.
Did you see the play Night Mother?
Oh,
the play Night Mother, because the
I
old
love
play
that
is
film.
that she.
I mean, it's a film and a play, right? And so that
but I didn't
play
see
I really loved. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, she always liked cereal in the morning, and now she doesn't even like cereal. So
right.
But you know, I want to ask you something. So, being Israelis, us, we talk in Israelis between us. We start with everybody is very depressed.
In Israel right now.
Oh, yeah. Of course, we took another step now to say everybody's post-trauma, but let's stop at being depressed.
I think it's everybody.
You would like people to stop being depressed. Is that what you said?
What I'm saying is that depression came like almost it's there.
Let's say that everybody is very upset about what we
Obviously,
face,
yeah.
and everybody is traumatic. Many try to be hopeful and optimistic. It's a very unoptimistic picture. So it's very hard. It's hard to breathe. You know,
I imagine it's
like
must
life
have been probably the
continues,
most
but in
difficult
a
time
very
ever.
different, yeah.
Celia, you know, I don't know if you know, but it is somehow connected because you went to Afghanistan.
I did.
And if you can tell us a little bit, because there was this American woman who actually gave hope, right? And then
Yes.
Americans went out from Afghanistan and shut again. Can you tell us about
Why did you go there?
Well,
And when?
it's a long story, but I mean, the simplest, I don't know if I should, you know, how much I should say about this, but when 9/11 happened, of course, it happened right here in New York, you know, about a mile away. And I mean, I'm sure I was traumatized by it, et cetera. And also I ended up volunteering to work down at this is a tangent, excuse me, Tzipi, but so the tangent is I ended up volunteering down there to work in a clinical capacity with firefighters and construction workers and dock workers and all of these people who were on the pile, you know, trying to, you know, fetch out body parts, for lack of a better expression. And anyway, they were all terribly traumatized, as you can imagine. And it was traumatizing for me to be down there also. But the point is, for the first several months, 3 months, let's say, I had something I was doing. I mean, I was doing my normal job and working the 4 o'clock in the afternoon to midnight shift down at Ground Zero. Not every day, but like, let's just say 2 days a week, maybe 3 in a given week. Anyway, the point is, when I decided, okay, I can't do this anymore, then I mean, I was still in this urgent mode, you know, how trauma is, you know, when you feel like you have to do something. And I felt like I had to do something. And so my attention, and I've always had a soft spot in my heart for Afghanistan, or for the women of Afghanistan, let's put it like that. And the painfulness of living under the Taliban and all of that. And so when I learned about this woman who is Afghan American and who she started this wonderful training program that is really about, you know, it's something at the time, it was something like 90% of men and 95% of women, adult men and women, could not read and write in their own language. I mean, I'm not talking about English or Arabic. I mean, in their own language, they could not read or write. So almost the entire population is illiterate. And so, and they have really intense gender roles, you know, and all of this sort of stuff. So my friend had this really interesting approach, which was to say, let me reach out to the men. Let me reach out to a man who is, of course, married with a family and whom I know is likely to be illiterate. And I'm going to pitch to him this program. It's free. We will teach you to read and write. And in this case, Dari, it might be Pashto, but anyway, Dari or Pashto. And Dari is kind of like Farsi, similar. It's a dialect of Farsi. And so point is that, you know, we will help you to learn to read and write, you know, and you will be able to get a better job. You know, you'll be able to make fewer mistakes in your job because you'll be able to read the labels of what goes on the shelf and whatever, you know. And you know, these men would get very excited. Okay, wonderful. You know, yes, I definitely want to do it. I'm ready to X my signature on some document. And then my friend would say, okay, great. I'm so glad you want to come, but it's a couples program, and you can only come if you bring your wife. So she sort of got in under the radar, you know, as far as you know, luring these men to participate. And almost everybody said yes after they were already excited about it. And so they brought their wives. So just in the classroom, you've got couples, men and women, sitting there together. And, you know,
they're not allowed.
Pardon me?
No, but if they're married, they're allowed.
Well,
but the women are taking off their burqas. You know, they probably have a headscarf on, but they don't have their full body covering on. And so this is the first time in these people's entire lives that adult men and women who are not in the same family have sat together with the woman's face uncovered. Okay, so just that alone is huge. But the other thing about learning, you're both illiterate, you're both learning to read or write, you start off on exactly the same foot. You know, I mean, I'm ignorant, you're ignorant, you know? I mean, I learn a little something and you missed that, I can help you. I didn't
level
quite
of
get it, and
equality
you
that
can
they
help
don't
me.
know.
And
So there's
communication.
a kind of collaboration begins to start. And then there are all these things about how, you know, their kids start to respect them more because their kids are learning to read and write. I mean, at least their sons are. And their daughters at that moment were also learning to read and write. And so they, especially the women, felt suddenly like, oh, I mean, I'm kind of somebody, you know, I mean, they actually want me to help them, you know, with this. And also they help me because sometimes they know more than I do in terms of reading and writing. Anyway, so what I did was I went there to try to kind of evaluate her program informally, but also to interview all of these people, these couples who were in the program. And so I made a little film that is essentially it's a promo for her organization, although it could be pitched in a broader way. But just to show all of the changes in this couple. I mean, there were 3 different couples where the men, and there are only like, I don't remember how many couples that I formally interviewed, but yeah, I can't remember right now, but maybe it's 30-ish. And 3 out of that small number, 3 of the men out of that small number spontaneously said, and the equivalent, and I don't hit her anymore.
Wow.
Okay, they didn't really say that, but they said, I don't fight anymore. Now I use my words. Now I have learned
Wow.
to ask for what, or to say what I am thinking and needing. And she can then use her words. And we might argue a little bit, but then it's over.
Wow.
It's okay. We solve it together.
Right.
And, you know, it's very, you know, it was very moving to me.
But this program was shut down, actually?
I mean, I'm not exactly sure what's going on right now, but if anything is going on with respect to this program, it is utterly in secret.
Wow.
You know, I mean, of course, it is not allowed.
Right. By the way, it's not funny, but when I did my research about battered women in one of the Arab villages in Israel, they told me that some men asked the wife to scream, so the neighbors would think he's beating her.
Huh.
Because
Well,
otherwise,
that will make
he's
him a
not a
big
man.
man.
He's
That will
not a
make
man.
him respected by others.
Yeah, you want to
in
be
the neighborhood.
respected.
Oh
So
my
he asked
God.
his wife, please scream a little bit, so they would think I'm well. So you're
But they're
carrying.
very gutsy, these people.
Yes,
to do
it's very
very
dangerous.
gutsy.
It's very dangerous. You know,
But
something,
also to admit that you're beyond the others and you allow.
right.
Uh-huh.
But when
Yeah.
the first time she told me the story, one of the things that really was a punch, like a punch in the stomach, was in a good way, in a way that you say that they started to smile.
Yes.
You told me they didn't smile.
They were very serious, very
Yeah, oh, yeah, and suddenly
Yeah.
started to smile, which is wonderful. So you're carrying, I don't know if it's much connected, but you know, I just want to mention, because I cannot hide things, that you are involved in the campaign of Hillary Clinton, right?
Right.
Right. You probably know that many people were
Campaigns, plural, all of them.
Say it again. Oh, no.
All of them. U.S. Senate re-elect, the first run for the presidency and the second run for the presidency. Yeah.
How close was she to win?
How close was she to winning? Well, she did win the popular vote by 3 million votes, you know, so from that standpoint, she won. Okay, but we have this hideous thing called the Electoral College, and she lost the Electoral College to Trump, and she was enormously close to winning even the Electoral College. I mean, so for example, she lost. There were third-party. I know in Israel you have lots of parties, and so you will have no sympathy for what I'm about to say, having to do with the dramatic, you know, kind of craziness of all of the parties that are contending in Israel all the time and changing all the time. But here we have just pretty much a 2-party system, except sometimes there will be 1 or 2, so to speak, third-party candidates on the ballot. And so in 2016, if you take, for example, the state of Michigan, which, you know, Democrats always win, but we lost in 2016, the third-party candidates got more votes than the difference in votes between Trump and Clinton. Okay, so what I'm saying is that if those third-party people were not on the ballot, there is really a good chance that she would have won. Okay.
And then everything will look different, right?
Pardon me?
Well,
Everything maybe will look different.
Everything,
America.
yes, everything would look totally different. I mean, yeah. So for example, as far as authoritarianism and so to speak, fascism in the world, it would have, I mean, there was already an escalation in it going on. Okay. I mean, Poland had already dropped at that point. Now Poland is better. Okay. So yay. But in any event, there were already things going on. But of course, there is this kind of almost moral licensing of dictators, you know, I mean, since it's given the United States position in the world, it sort of conveys to all criminal actors and all, you know, billionaires and whatever, this is yours for the taking, and you'll never have to deal with another election, and you can make tax cuts and all these kinds of things, and you know, and also we can be as corrupt as we want, no problem, you know, and so yeah, none of that would have happened if at least that element of things if Hillary had been elected. But what I'm trying to say is that she lost by a very small margin in Michigan, a very small margin in Wisconsin, and a very small margin in Pennsylvania. And those were such small margins that, I mean, anything could have affected that. You know, like it's as little as one vote per precinct.
Right.
You know, one person in a given district.
Susan, how far you think we are here from having a woman as the head of state,
Head of, no,
the United States?
Yeah. I guess I think we're pretty far still.
We went backwards.
But if the person were a total, excuse my wording here, a total asshole and, you know, Republican and, you know, kind of criminal and, you know, that would be, you know, attracting the criminal element, if you will, of the Trump supporters, the MAGA supporters, then I think it's not out of the question. But any kind of ordinary, you know, because there they could say, oh, right, she's a woman, we don't like that part, but at least she'll suck it to those, at least she'll be our revenge, you know.
like in Italy now.
Pardon me?
Like in Italy now.
Like in Italy, right. But she turns out to be,
Okay.
I mean, just on my little, you know, minimal watching of it, she seems to present herself
Right.
on average in a more humane
Right.
way
Yes.
than
Less
what her
scary than
historical
Putin.
lineage suggests. So that's an exception. I mean, that's not the kind of person I'm referring to
Yeah.
here because
I was
she's
very
actually
happy
a
when
lot-
you were associated with the Clinton. I was very happy because I thought that I don't know how to say it. You were kind of an envelope.
Mhm.
Envelope that actually I'm sure that wherever you went with her, it was based on really caring for the people and caring for values.
Caring for the country,
And
caring for
values.
her, caring for her and caring for the country and
Right.
caring that women voters would not end up being drawn away because women are, I don't mean this is, I'm about to say something awful. Let me restate this. It is possible to manipulate women on certain topics related to marriage. And so, for example, women love to say, you know, well, if my husband had an affair, I would just leave him. You know, that's what they say. I was thinking, oh, really? Okay. And that's why you're all still married.
Right. Right. But you know that I don't remember when, but it was time in Israel. I don't know now, maybe it's a big change that most women voted like their husband.
Exactly. But this is yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Women can end up being manipulated to vote like their husbands, even if their husbands are voting for fascism, you know, because it makes them feel more connected and safer and more, in other words, it makes them feel like, okay, I am someplace I can trust and I have to, you know, I can depend on him and whatever. But
Right.
there's a certain layer of self-deception in the middle of this. Certainly it's not in their own self-interest. You know, in that case, it was not in their self-interest to vote for Trump. And yet, on the level of, well, I'm closer to my husband now because I voted for Trump.
There
On
is
that level, yes.
Yeah.
there
you know?
is no room for self-thinking, you know, that the feel that if he's right, because he's yours and he's right. But I have to say that in Israel, it wasn't only women. There were people who didn't say the truth. They vote for somebody
then
in
they-
order to be part of a group, and
Yeah.
basically they voted.
Opposite.
But I'm sure that it
Yes.
happens here too,
Yeah.
and it
It
happens
absolutely happens here.
everywhere.
Right.
And I mean, it's what in the US we call identity politics. And it used to be that identity politics was just kind of a normal, regular, ordinary thing, meaning, let's say you're a woman, there are women's issues that matter to you. Let's say that you're gay, there are gay issues that matter to you. Let's say you're of Mexican descent.
You
maybe-
adopt what you need in order to get elected, but then, then you're not always follow.
Yeah, exactly, right, that's true too, but
I have a feeling
what I
that people, therefore I wish that you will find your way back.
yeah,
Yeah,
well,
somehow.
it's
There are
hard
so
to
many
find ways.
areas. So
I mean,
many
I have
areas.
that one connection,
Right.
that is well established and where I understand kind of how to do my role,
Right. Yeah.
and with other campaigns like the Biden campaign and so on, it's less obvious how I would. I mean, it's not actually. It is possible that I could have some kind of impact, but only as a member of a broader group.
Right.
And so I can, and I do that also sometimes, and part of a larger group that's making certain kinds of arguments about social psychology or whatever, and its relevance to the campaign.
Right.
But with Hillary, I was also, mainly doing just my own, it's just my own voice,
But we might be surprised and by a freak move, if Biden would win and God forbid something will happen to him in the middle, we might find.
But people don't have respect for her, and I don't know why.
But still,
because she's a woman. They've spent this entire time,
Yeah, and
basically.
I think she's wonderful.
She is wonderful, and
Yeah.
most women.
We talk about Camila.
Yeah. Most of the time when women are in this kind of high profile position, they know that everybody is just waiting for them to fail or
Yes.
slip in
Right.
any
And they
way.
push them
And
aside.
so it makes for a certain self-consciousness or
Right.
hyper self-awareness that
Right.
makes them look less comfortable in their own skin. I mean,
Right.
she can be very comfortable in her own skin,
Yeah.
can't
She
Kamala
always
Harris,
was.
but she isn't always.
Yeah.
And so that's the kind of thing that the other side has played, to the hilt.
Well, we'll see what
Yeah,
happens.
I have to go, honestly. I have in 5 minutes another conversation.
Oh, we're already are we?
Yeah, yeah, it's like more than 50 minutes, but it was
Okay.
so really amazing. It was nice to talk to you.
Yes, it
You
was.
opened the door to quite a few, yeah.
And I found out why I think I recognize her face.
Oh,
You look like a friend of mine in Jerusalem, South.
Uh-huh.
okay,
Well,
so
Very
that's good.
good.
you know that we are
so what
going,
that
yeah,
does is
you're
it
invited
sort of
back.
oils the wheels of social interaction and sort of
Right.
makes it
You're
easier.
talking about, little things that we carry with us and we recognize and we know.
Yes.
And
So
we
she brings
sympathize.
the
So
quality to you.
it's
Right.
exactly the
Yeah,
same
yeah.
thing.
Okay, Susan, dear, maybe we can meet before we leave.
Thank
Okay,
you
I hope so.
much.
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
great. Yeah, I know you're leaving
Well,
practically.
kisses. What did you do? Okay.
No, I almost think of.
Bye, Booby. Bye, Tzili.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
See you
Bye.
next week.
Nice to see you both.
Yeah.
Bye bye.